So we've got a small fortune of Facebook news today, and joining us to help pillage that news is Kurt Wagner from Recode. How's it going, Kurt?
Hey guys, I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. I know you're super busy today. You've been writing like a maniac. So let's talk about a few things that you've been writing about. First up, Facebook reported its earnings today, and it appears by all accounts that Facebook continues to kill it. How much, in fact, is Facebook killing it right now, Kurt?
Yeah, it's good news for Facebook investors. There was some concern because the last 2 quarters they've said, hey, we're running out of places to put ads and newsfeed, and therefore, expect growth to slow in 2017. So technically, this is the very end of 2016. So, maybe preemptive concern. But at the same time, I think that they projected 46% revenue growth. I think Facebook was at 51. So, continues to outperform what analysts are expecting, and they're at I believe it's 1.86 billion users. So if they continue on their current growth, they should be to 2 billion users by the end of this year, which is pretty insane. So I think people are overall pretty happy with what they saw from Facebook today.
Yeah, no kidding. I remember when 1 billion was a big number.
Yeah,
those days. That was so long ago. Now, speaking of so long ago, back in 2012, Mark Zuckerberg had announced, and I remember this vividly, it was kind of the turning point for Facebook. They said, we're going to be focusing on mobile going forward. We think mobile's really important. Now, here we are almost 5 years later, and what was the number? It was mobile now makes up 84% of their ad revenue. So, I mean, by all accounts, that was a very smart move for Facebook. Is that why Facebook is still relevant here, some 13 years since it was founded?
Yeah, that was an incredibly smart move. And it sounds so obvious now to think about, well, of course, Facebook is going to be on our mobile devices. But at the time, you think about 2011, 2012, it wasn't as obvious back then. And for him to really shift the whole company and say, hey, we're gonna tackle mobile, and we're gonna make sure that Facebook is the best service on mobile. It was pretty, thoughtful of him at the time, and it's certainly benefiting. I mean, when you look at where advertising dollars are going, they pretty much go to 2 players. They go to Facebook and they go to Google, and Facebook has such a mobile presence between Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp and Messenger that it seems inevitable that that's only going to continue to grow. 84%. There's not much more for it to increase. But I would imagine, at this time next year, we'll be at 90% or we'll be at 95, and so I think mobile is what makes them so sticky, because they're in all of our pockets all the time. And had they, been even a year or 2 behind that, who knows what would have happened with other services.
Yeah.
And what about that idea that Facebook might be running out of places to put ads? Do you give that any credence?
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I think that when you look at an advertising-based business, there's a couple ways to keep growth steady, right? I mean, you're either going to add more users or you're going to add more ads. And up until now, Facebook's really been able to do both. And clearly, they're still growing. So it seems like the user thing, at least for the time being, seems to be consistent. But if you can't add more ads, then you just inevitably reach this plateau where it's like, okay, well, we can't grow at the same rate that we used to. So I think it's a valid concern. I think what we saw from them, and actually one of the things I wrote about this morning, was all of the tests that they're doing around other types of ad formats. So they're experimenting with ads in Messenger. They have a new type of ad in Instagram stories. They're talking about doing these mid-roll video ads, which they've never offered before. So clearly they have a number of other, places to put ads. But I think when you say, hey, we are running out of we are running out of space in newsfeed, which has always been the core moneymaker for them. When we're running out of space there, I do think there's some concern. I don't think it's the kind of thing where all of a sudden Facebook's going to turn around and deliver a crummy quarter. But I think people just need to have realistic expectations that when the numbers get this big, there's only so much higher you can go, right? You can't grow at 50% quarter after quarter for 10 years. That's just not realistic. So I think we're finally getting to that point where Facebook's going to have to start, getting creative around how they grow their revenue, whereas they haven't had to be as creative before.
I think they're really missing out on a lot of opportunities. They could put ads inside the photos. Like if there's a billboard in your photo, they could put their own ad. They could maybe like put it on the sides of baby pictures or a dog,
Sure.
like on the back of your dog pictures. They're not.
Is that what you want? Are you asking for to make ads on your photos?
No, I mean, I think they should just put them on the back of our eyelids and be done with it.
They should just hire employees to walk around the streets holding giant signs. That's their new ad.
With big thumbs next to them.
Exactly.
Now, I think one of Facebook's strengths and kind of how this is developed with Instagram is a prime example. Its strength is the ability to kind of acquire strong properties, and more importantly than just acquiring those properties, but keep them growing at a good tick. You wrote that Instagram is now at 500 monthly active users, which makes me wonder if
600 actually.
Oh, is it 600?
600 monthly, 400 daily, which is crazy.
Which is a million, not.
Sorry, I had to jump in. You're off by only 100 million. So.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I missed the really important part there. So should Snapchat be worried? I mean, obviously Snapchat, we keep hearing there's an expected IPO announcement, but Instagram is doing insane. And much of that is because Instagram has emulated a lot of the things that have been successful for Snapchat. Yeah. And this is kind of an example of that. What do you think?
I'm starting to think so. Yeah, I'm still not quite a believer that Instagram is necessarily stealing users away from Snapchat. I just think that people who love Snapchat continue to use it. I think what we're seeing, though, is Instagram kind of putting a ceiling on Snapchat's growth. And I talked about this before, this idea that, if you're over, 25 years old, and you probably have Instagram if you live in the US or in Europe. And so maybe you've thought, do I really need Snapchat? And if Instagram wasn't copying all the features, maybe you'd get to a point where you'd say, yeah, I kind of do need Snapchat. Everyone's using it and they offer something unique. But if Instagram is simply offering all the same things, you're already on Instagram. I think what they're going to eventually run into, this is a hunch, is they're going to run into trouble getting people who are over 30 because all those people have all the features in Instagram, which they already use, and they're not going to see a need for a secondary app. So I don't necessarily think it's the kind of thing where Snapchat's sitting there watching their user base shrivel, but I do think it's the kind of thing where their long-term growth could be impacted if people don't see a valid reason to have both apps. And I think what we've seen from Twitter is that when you don't grow, that can be a real concern. People really freak out about that. And so that would be my one concern for Snapchat here.
We're still kind of, it seems like the rumors, the rumblings have been around a Snapchat IPO potentially announcing by the end of this week. Is that still kind of a thought that that's going to happen?
Oh yeah, we are prepared for that. So it's now Wednesday, so gives us 2 days, either tomorrow or Friday, where we might see the S1 document publicly for the first time. They filed it privately, so they've been working on it for months. It's not like something that no one has seen, but those of us on the outside have not. And so this will kind of be our first glimpse into their business, which is a big deal. The company's valued, they're hoping to be valued around $25 billion, and we've never technically seen revenues or user growth. Like, we know what they've said out loud, which hasn't been much, but it'll be kind of fun to go through that document for the first time and just see all of the stuff that they haven't been able to share before.
Yeah, cool. Right around the corner. All right, so finally, in other bit of Facebook news here, Facebook has been in court fighting a lawsuit on behalf of Oculus, of course, its VR company, who was charged with stealing technology from a gaming company called ZeniMax before Oculus was acquired by Facebook. And now we have the jury. How did Facebook fare in the verdict with this announcement?
Yeah. Well, Facebook will tell you it could have been worse, right? I believe the maximum amount that ZeniMax was asking for in damages was $6 billion. Facebook is going to have to pay $500 million. It is a lot of money for sure. It is not going to break the bank for Facebook, obviously, but I think more than anything, it's just kind of a reality check around kind of how Oculus got started. And again, Facebook will say, well, hey, we didn't actually get in trouble for intellectual property theft. It was more of like we hired people who broke a non-disclosure agreement. I'm quite frankly not entirely sure then what the difference between breaking an NDA and stealing intellectual property is. They sound relatively similar to me, but either way, I guess could have been worse for Facebook, but $500 million, that's not the outcome I'm sure that the company wanted. They said that they are going to appeal or look into appealing this decision. And so I guess that case will continue on. But yeah, I mean, it definitely caught some headlines. And if you'll remember, Facebook just hired someone to run all of their, new VR, like a new CEO. So, yep. There's a lot happening at Oculus right now, and it's clearly a business they believe at for the future. But at the same time, it hasn't been a super smooth road to date for them.
Yeah, it seems to some degree that $500 million is kind of a speed bump on the way to doing what Facebook considers to be the next major computing platform. It's kind of like, this is the price of doing business. At the same time, they really rushed through the vetting process when they decided they wanted to acquire Oculus, and this is probably the result of that rush.
Sure.
From their
I think they said it done in a weekend or 3 days or something. So, I mean, having acquired a company myself, I imagine that's pretty fast. So, who knows what would have turned up had they taken 2 weeks? Maybe not this, but maybe this. So there you go.
So I know that you talked to Sheryl Sandberg about the ruling, and also you guys at Recode talked to her just about what's been going on. You quoted her as saying just what's been going on politically. She said, "I have to be optimistic. Hope is the fuel for social change. When we don't have hope, we give up on ourselves," which I think was very kind of you to give that full quote, because what I saw on the news and on Twitter was just that it's basically critical of Sandberg, saying like, she says, well, I have hope in Trump, which people were seeing as negative. Now, what do you think about Facebook and the stands they've been taking or not taking as far as politics goes?
I mean, they haven't really said much that others haven't said. I think most of the tech industry has found this these immigration policies as like a really easy lightning rod for their feelings towards Donald Trump and his kind of entire campaign. I thought that she was firmer. Actually, she did a post yesterday on Facebook where I thought she was even firmer. Mark Zuckerberg hasn't really said much of anything of significance. Of course, time he says anything, we all write it up because it's Mark Zuckerberg. But in terms of really taking a stand, I think Sheryl's been a little bit more forceful. But that being said, people expect a lot from both of them, and especially her because of her role, in writing Lean In and really being like a champion for women in the workplace and female empowerment and all of these different issues that she has been a leader and a very visible and vocal leader for. And then she kind of went silent for a little bit during this Women's March, and found out today that she was like, oh, I had another obligation, a personal obligation. I don't think anyone is going to certainly not going to ruin her reputation that she wasn't there. But at the same time, I think that is a prime example of a place where people expected to hear from her and then they didn't. So, I think that they probably have more room to be even louder and if they care to be. I don't think that they necessarily are eager to do that, given the fact that a lot of Facebook users are probably Trump supporters, right? And ultimately they're running a business, and so we'll see how this continues to move forward. But I know that, in Silicon Valley, Sheryl is such a leader, especially among women in tech. And so people were eager to hear what she had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I felt a little frustrated that everyone was sort of jumping on the bandwagon to get angry at her for not being there. She's in a tough spot. And, what about all the other tech leaders that weren't there? Why were they just picking on her? And I get it, because she wrote Lean In, because she has been such, a proponent for women's rights. But, maybe she just said, maybe someone else's job to do it for now. And you point out that she's putting her money where her mouth is. Absolutely. She sold $100 million in Facebook stock last November to help fund women's empowerment groups. So maybe it's easier for her to donate in that way rather than be speaking out all the time or going on a march.
Well, and at the risk of, super cliche, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And here is Sheryl, who is arguably the leader for all of this stuff. So she's just held at a higher standard than she probably deserves to be honest, given her track record. And yeah, you point out it's not as if she's just doing lip service here. I mean, she's putting some serious money behind issues that she cares about. She will continue, I am sure, to do this moving forward. I think that people were fired up in the moment. They were looking for her to be there and she wasn't. It was kind of a weird thing. I don't think it's going to tarnish her legacy by any stretch, but you know, I think it's good that people kind of remember that, okay, maybe she missed one event, but here are all of the things that she is doing. I think overall she probably has done significantly more good than anything else, and I'm sure that she'll continue to be a champion for all those same causes moving forward.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.